At 38, his life revolved around his two beautiful cats, Tiger and Koko, a brother-sister duo that had been part of his life for several years. They brought joy and companionship to his household, each with their own unique personality. Tiger was independent and aloof, while Koko was nurturing and warm-hearted. Dean adored them both equally, but Koko's tender affection made her the more outwardly affectionate of the two. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Dean sat near the window, sipping on his tea and observing the quiet rhythm of his garden, something unexpected caught his attention. A small baby squirrel had tumbled from the towering oak tree in his backyard. Dean's heart lurched as he witnessed the tiny creature plummet from a height akin to that of a four-story building. The little squirrel's descent ended with a sickening thud as it hit a branch, and Dean could see that it had sustained a deep wound on its chest. The scene left him torn. Should he rush to its aid, or should he wait and see if its mother would intervene? His knowledge of wildlife made him pause. If he approached too soon, the mother might reject her baby entirely. But as the minutes ticked by, his anxiety grew. After what felt like hours, though it had only been a few minutes, the mother squirrel cautiously made her way down the tree. She sniffed and circled her injured cub. Dean held his breath, hoping she would carry the baby back up into the safety of the nest. But to his dismay, after a brief inspection, the mother turned and fled into the forest, leaving her baby behind. She had abandoned the cub, likely sensing that its injuries were too severe for it to survive. Dean could not, in good conscience, leave the injured squirrel there to perish. He rushed out, carefully cradling the fragile creature in his hands. The squirrel's tiny body shivered, its eyes barely open. It was clear that if Dean didn't act quickly, the baby wouldn't make it through the night. Without wasting another moment, Dean grabbed his keys, bundled the little squirrel in a soft cloth, and sped to the nearest veterinarian. The drive seemed agonizingly long as Dean continually glanced at the injured animal, hoping against hope that it would survive the trip. When he finally arrived, the vets wasted no time and whisked the baby squirrel away for treatment. The minutes stretched into an eternity as Dean waited in the clinic's lobby, his heart heavy with worry. After what felt like a lifetime, the vet emerged with a tired but hopeful smile. The squirrel, though seriously injured, would survive. The chest wound was deep, but it wasn't life-threatening. However, the vet informed Dean that the little creature would need ongoing care and would not be able to survive on its own in the wild, at least not until it was much older. Relieved and determined, Dean made the decision to take the baby squirrel home and nurse it back to health. He even gave the little squirrel a name, Tinton, after the adventurous cartoon character. From the moment Tinton came into his home, Dean's life took on a new rhythm. Bringing Tinton into his household wasn't without its challenges. Denmark had strict laws about keeping wild animals as pets, and Dean found himself navigating a labyrinth of paperwork and legal processes to ensure that Tinton could remain with him. But his determination paid off, and eventually, he was granted the right to care for the little squirrel. When Dean first introduced Tinton to his two cats, their reactions couldn't have been more different. Koko, true to her nurturing nature, immediately took a liking to the tiny creature. She began licking Tinton, almost as if adopting the baby squirrel as her own. She would cuddle up to the squirrel, her maternal instincts on full display. On the other hand, Tiger remained indifferent. He took one look at the strange, furry creature, yawned, and sauntered out of the room, clearly uninterested in whatever bond was forming between Koko and Tinton. Days turned into weeks, and Koko's bond with Tinton only deepened. She would lie next to the squirrel for hours, grooming and playing with him as if he were one of her own kittens. Tinton, now growing stronger each day, seemed to thrive under Koko's care. He played, nibbled at her ears, and snuggled up to her soft fur. Dean's two children, too, became enchanted by the baby squirrel. Tinton brought a new energy into the house, one that was lighthearted and full of life. Tiger, however, remained detached, watching from a distance, uninterested in the small creature that had invaded his home. Despite Koko's clear affection for the squirrel, Tiger kept to himself, seemingly unmoved by the growing bond between his sister and the orphaned animal. But as life would have it, not all moments are joyful. About a year after Tinton had become a part of their family, tragedy struck. Koko passed away quietly in her sleep, leaving a deep void in the household. Her absence was felt by everyone, but none more so than Tiger. Though he had never openly shown much affection for Koko, her death changed something in him. He wandered through the house, mewing mournfully, clearly searching for his sister. He would often sit in her favorite spots, waiting for her to return, but she never did. Dean watched with a heavy heart as Tiger grieved. It seemed as though the cat had lost his way, but as time passed, something remarkable happened. Gradually, Tiger's attitude toward Tinton began to shift. At first, it was subtle, a passing glance here, a moment of quiet observation there. But over time, Tiger began to spend more and more time near Tinton. What began as casual proximity slowly developed into something much deeper. One day, Dean found Tiger curled up next to Tinton, the two of them fast asleep together. It was as if Tiger had decided to take on the role that Koko had left behind. From that moment on, the bond between Tiger and Tinton blossomed. They became inseparable companions, with Tiger assuming the role of the older protective brother. Their friendship was a sight to behold. Tiger, once aloof, now watched over Tinton with unwavering vigilance. The two would explore the garden together, climbing trees and chasing each other through the grass. Tinton, ever the adventurer, would often ride on Tiger's back, his tiny paws gripping onto the cat's fur as they roamed the yard. It was a funny sight, seeing the tiny squirrel perched atop the regal cat, but it warmed Dean's heart to see the bond they shared. Whenever they encountered danger, whether it was a hawk soaring overhead or a neighborhood dog prowling nearby, Tiger would immediately position himself between the threat and Tinton. Despite his smaller size compared to some of the animals they encountered, Tiger was fearless in his defense of his little friend. He had become not just a companion, but a protector, watching over Tinton as fiercely as Koko once had. As the months rolled on, their relationship deepened. They would greet each other with playful nuzzles and spend hours together lounging in the sun. Tinton would curl up next to Tiger at night, burrowing into his fur for warmth and comfort. In Tiger, Tinton had found a surrogate family member, and in Tinton, Tiger had found a reason to heal. Dean often marveled at the transformation he had witnessed. What had begun as a tragic fall from a tree had turned into a story of resilience, healing, and an unlikely friendship. He reflected on how Tinton, a little creature abandoned and injured, had brought so much love and joy into their lives, and Tiger, once indifferent, had become the steadfast companion that Tinton needed. As the seasons changed, so too did their bond. Tinton, now fully grown, still relied on Tiger's companionship, but he had also begun to venture further from the house. Dean knew that one day the squirrel might feel the call of the wild and leave their home for good. But for now, Tinton and Tiger were content, two unlikely friends who had found solace in each other. And so, life in Dean's household continued, with laughter, play, and the enduring bond between a cat and a squirrel that had defied the odds. The once abandoned baby squirrel had not only survived but thrived, all thanks to the kindness of a man and the love of two cats, one gone but never forgotten, and the other who had found his purpose in an unexpected friendship.